Attention true believers, the Fantasticast is on the air. And first, some news.
There's no end to the desire they have for new titles. Everybody has a favorite character. People just keep asking for more things.
I know. And, that's interesting that you say that, because on that note, one of the things that we've been hearing so much is, guys, we kind of want a special team back. We want some characters back in our...
Yeah, I mean, it's the return of the New Mutants, isn't it?
Fantastic Four is coming back. The first family is returning to Marvel on Saturday.
Yes! Yes! And now, this week, episode 275, covering Fantastic Four 192, He Who Soweth the Wind. Ah! They're back! Hello! And welcome to episode 275 of the Fantasticast, a flickeringmyth.com podcast network show. We are your podcast guide to the Fantastic Four from the beginning of the Marvel Age of Comics. Every issue, every spin-off, every guest appearance and cameo. My name is Steve Lacey.
My name is Andrew Leyland.
And today on the show, we reach the end of a little mini-era in the Fantastic Four as George Perez pencils his last issue and heads off to the bright new future of the Korvac saga.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I thought it was the new Teen Titans, but it's not yet, is it?
Not in 78, I'm afraid.
Right.
No, we need Jim Shooter to take over to piss Marv Wolfman off first.
All right, we've got another year or so then.
I don't think Marv's even started his Spider-Man run yet.
What issue of Spider-Man's out concurrent with this, and I'll tell you.
178, the fake Green Goblin. Dying?
That's still Len Wein.
Yeah, Len Wein.
Len Wein.
Lean now, I tell you, damn it. Yes, we'll be giving our thoughts on Perez's time as a penciler at the end of this.
I'm sorry, I've just seen the title of the Otis Cups Cakes ad.
Now that, listeners, is what we call foreshadowing. Join us in about 35 minutes' time to find out why Andy can't.
I've just showed it to Angela. Oh, back off the mic a bit. Sorry about that, listener. That was completely unprompted. I hadn't looked at the hostess ad for this month yet. I do apologise.
Oh, my God. So as well as sniggering childishly at well, it is a very, very weird title, we will be looking back at George Perez's run. But before we get into things, Andy...
Yes?
Do you know what we are?
Awesome in every conceivable way.
Yes, but we are also supported by Stitcher Premium.
Oh, are we? Excellent. Good. I'm made up about that.
You see, what I've done is I've moved it from a slightly awkward, echoey pre-podcast bit into the body of the show. It's harder to skip now, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's quite exciting for us because someone actually is wanting to provide us with the sponsorship, but it also works for us because it's a podcasty thing, it's a Marvel Comicsy thing. This was not that we've had many offers, if any, but this was one where it felt like we could say yes to this, whereas something like Casper mattresses, unless they were going to give me a free mattress, are less likely to say yes to. I mean, we're not in a Casper mattress league, let's be clear.
Casper mattresses, a better way to sleep.
Stop it, we're not getting paid for that.
All right.
But we do have a promo code for Stitcher Premium, which all of our listeners can use to get 1 month for free with the service. Simply go to stitcher.com/premium and use the promo code Fantasticast. And what that gets you is 1 month's access to Stitcher Premium. And the reason why that could be good is because you get to listen to the episodes of Wolverine: The Long Night, Marvel's first scripted podcast, starring Richard Armitage as Wolverine, and with a script by Green Arrow writer Ben Percy, who we all miss because he's just wrapped up his run on Green Arrow. It's had some really, really good reviews at this stage, especially in terms of the sound design, where they've actually taken the actors out on location in Alaska to get the audio design really strong on that. And it's turning into, quite an interesting little listen. I'll be honest, I was a little sceptical about it when it was announced, but having listened to a couple of episodes, I got to grudgingly say there's something to this. So yeah, if you want to go and give that a listen, episodes are coming out weekly on Stitcher Premium, so if you enter the promo code now, you could probably get the 8 out of the 10 by the time your free month is up. But yeah, so stitcher.com/premium, promo code Fantasticast. Right, that's enough whoring ourselves. Just going to take a quick shower.
Never enough whoring ourselves.
Anyway, back to the show. This week is our first week looking at books cover dated March 1978 and released during December 1977. Now, December 1977 was the month in which Jean Bedel Bokassa, President of the Central African Republic, crowned himself Emperor. As you do. Malcolm Fraser was re-elected Prime Minister of Australia in the federal election. Djibouti and Vietnam joined the United Nations. The first children's cable channel launched in the US, originally called the Pinwheel Network, it would later become known as Nickelodeon. Notable films released this month included High Anxiety, ABBA the Movie, and Saturday Night Fever. The UK #1 album this month was Bread with The Sound of Bread, replaced by the compilation album Disco Fever. Notable births this month included cricketer Andrew Flintoff, French President Emmanuel Macron, Gangnam Style icon Psy, piece of human effluent Donald J. Trump Jr.
Now.
Well, he is.
Well, yes, but nobody's listening to the show for our political opinion. Andrew Flintoff believes the Earth is flat.
Okay, he's a twat then. And Donald J. Trump Jr. is a piece of shit. And singer Imogen Heap. Notable deaths this month included director Howard Hawks and actor, comedian and director Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, how old was he?
Old. I don't know. I'm currently looking at a comic and there's no biographical details of Charlie Chaplin within this issue of Fantastic Four.
That's a shame.
It is a little. Well, we'll give that a low rating and move on then. It's your turn.
I was just Googling Charlie Chaplin to see how old he was.
I can't believe you're choosing that over talking about a George Perez cover.
Yes, I'm terribly sorry about that, lovely listener. I was just, it's one of those things. Charlie Chaplin must have been ancient. Anyway, Fantastic Four issue 192, the world's greatest comic magazine. What starts as a car race turns into a holocaust. Lo, the screaming wind. The Torch fights alone against the most surprising supervillain of all. It's only surprising in the sense that you go, me, who's that? The cover is by George Perez and Frank Giacoia. A tornado sweeps up the Human Torch and Rebecca Rainbow as the rest of the FF watch from a little inset circle. Who is Rebecca Rainbow, I hear you ask? Well, all will be explained later, lovely listener. It is a pretty impressive for George Perez cover. It's quite surprising for Perez that all of the people are just funny little circles and each one doesn't have a unique face. But for the most part, very eye-catching, very interesting, although the inset of the Fantastic Four is somewhat misleading because they do not go with Johnny to watch the race.
88.
Oh, not that old then.
Well, reasonably. I think considering everything he'd gone through, especially being told by America to piss off. Anyway, this cover. It's fine. It's not very representative because this clearly takes place as a massive race circuit, whereas the race we actually see in the book is in the middle of nowhere.
Hey, well, it's a cross-country thing in the comic, isn't it?
And Rebecca Rainbow. Can't wait to forget all about her. Like everyone else. It's fine. I don't really have a huge amount to say about it. I mean, George Perez, it's George Perez, so it's well drawn, but I just don't feel there's very much going on that's very interesting.
Say it with me, people. It does the job.
What, Clorox?
Yes. What? Anyway, should I carry on talking about the comic?
I think that's probably best.
Probably for the best, yes. He Who Soweth the Wind was guest scripted by Roger Slifer. That's him. Plotted by Len Wein, with artists, storytellers, George Perez and Joe Sinnott. Glynis Wein was the colourist, Joe Rosen was the letterer, and Marv Wolfman was the editor. Johnny arrives way out west to take part in the cross-country race he was invited to a few issues ago. He is greeted at the airport by an old friend, Wyatt Wingfoot, and his class of over-eager pre-teens. As Johnny impresses the kids with a display of fireworks, he is unaware he is being watched by a strange man with a Southern American accent. Back home, subplots happen, and for ease, I'll group them all together here so we can return to the Johnny Storm story. The Thing is packing to go and help NASA test drive a new space shuttle, only for the Yancey Street gang to play one last prank on him. Reed, meanwhile, is finding it hard to find a regular job, being far too overqualified for everything. He therefore welcomes an invite to work for Cynthian Associates for 20 grand a week. Now back to the regularly scheduled story. Johnny arrives at his hotel to be upstaged by Rebecca Rainbow, a friend of Wyatt's, and a pretty hot driver in her own right. She'll be racing against Johnny tomorrow. Johnny checks in and is given the best room in the house by Thaddeus P. Longhorn, mayor of the city and organiser of Dade County's first drag race. Johnny again fails to notice the oddly mustachioed southern gentleman watching him in the foyer, but that's because there are lots of oddly mustachioed southern gentlemen in the foyer. Said fine fellow receives a call reminding him that they want the torch in their hands tomorrow. End of part 1.
They want the whole torch in their hands. They want the whole torch in their hands.
Ba-dum-ba-dum.
Indeed. So, this story. I'm trying not to say words that rhymes with smange and schmales, but I get a very Strange Tales feel from this.
I got an incredible Strange Tales feel from this, but you know what else? This was good.
Oh, you're going that way with it. Okay.
You can go the other way if you want to.
Well, maybe we should actually cover the whole of the issue before we get into that. But this opening page seems very, just very weird. The idea that Johnny and Wyatt would be literally 2 feet away from each other and Johnny wouldn't... I don't know. I feel like if there had been a bit more distance, like maybe Wyatt's seen in the background or something, I don't know. It feels awkwardly positioned for Johnny to be going, I'm all alone out here, no friends to talk to, not even Ben to bicker with, as he's about to walk into Wyatt's pecs.
Because Wyatt is a pretty large man.
He seems to have gotten bigger. I don't remember him standing an entire head and shoulders above Johnny before.
Well, if we assume Johnny's 5'10" and he's about 6'5", I always thought he was an impressive figure of manhood.
Yeah, but Wyatt's waist is Johnny's nipple height.
He's been working out.
Oh, working out? Like what, on a torturer's rack?
Yes, on one of those stretchy things. I'm more interested in the fact that now he appears to be a teacher.
Well,
Does that go anywhere?
Well, I've no idea. Yeah, the last time we saw Wyatt, it was the aftermath of the Nativity story with Ghost Rider. Because there was a similar one in Marvel Team Up with, I want to say, Son of Satan, where basically the same plot as that Marvel 2-in-1 issue, but with a different bad guy behind it. Yeah, so we've not seen him in a while. I'll be honest, teacher with his tribe, kind of, it seems like a good path. You know, he's starting to become an elder of the tribe, as it were, even though he's the same age as Johnny, and Johnny's not the elder of anything.
Yes. Well, Wyatt's always had it more together than Johnny has. Johnny's kind of floundering at the minute because he doesn't even have the Fantastic Four anymore. So he doesn't really know what he's got. Wyatt's kind of had his path laid out for him from the very beginning. So it makes sense that he's in a much more stable place at the moment than Johnny is. I think a lot more could have been made of that.
Yeah, comparing and contrasting the two, it might have actually really played into Johnny's state of mind. Yeah, my friend is got it all together. I'm at a complete loss without my people around.
But they don't go down that path, so it's just nice to see young Wyatt again. I am particularly fond of the kids who seem very familiar to people who like Jack Kirby's Jimmy Olsen stuff. The one reminds me of Big Words because he speaks in very, very long, drawn-out sentences. I particularly love the bit, though. Why do you not exhibit the quality of continuous combustion attributed to that entity?
Yes, that felt a bit... That felt a bit over the top.
Yeah, it was, but it was fun.
Yeah, it's that thing of when somebody knows a dictionary but doesn't know how to communicate.
And I did love that he did that thing that you love, where he makes a Human Torch double.
Yeah, so he's setting off his powers. This is what really tipped me off onto the Strange Tales nature. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah. So we got flaming rings that he sends a fiery double through. How come Johnny never does this in good stories?
I quite liked this because it's not just one of those useless Strange Tales things where he pops off 4 doubles of himself to confuse the bad guy. We see quite clearly here that doing this takes a lot of concentration for him. Just to even make one flame double of himself. I bought it in this particular instance, especially seeing as he is only doing this to show off to a bunch of kids. So it's not like it's a major plot point like it ended up being in a lot of tales. It's just, he's showing off.
Yeah, okay. Yes, I just wish he'd have shown off with something that was a little more in line with his portrayal over the last, 160 issues of the Fantastic Four.
I suppose so, but I'll be honest, it's not something that bothered me. I liked seeing it again. I think I got a warm, cuddly vibe, which is odd given that we hated Strange Tales.
We certainly did. But yeah. Yes, okay, I'll look for something I like in this moment, and that's Johnny absorbing the flame duplicate back into him instead of it just being around. You ever read Oh, was it Bizarro Comics?
Yeah, I think I did read the first couple. Was it only a 3-issue miniseries?
No, it was like a graphic novel size thing. It might have been in singles. I don't know. I've got the graphic, but there's a story which is like Alan Scott goes and saves the day by creating all these wonderful Green Lantern constructs. And as he's sort of taken off by the cheering, adoring crowds, all these Green Lantern constructs are left to face their fate, their identity, a life without Alan Scott. And they sort of all sort of sad and grouping together and then heading off. I like the fact there was maybe a whole bunch of flame duplicates just sitting around going, he'll come back. One day he'll come back. He'll come back. Just in Glendale. No one else lives there. It's just flame duplicates. The town's got a bad rep because of these flamey ghosts wandering around looking to beat up the wizard or something. Yeah.
It doesn't ring a bell.
Okay.
Anyway, Johnny is watched by some bizarre southern gentleman with a magnificent moustache and good sideburns.
I mean, you can't see his moustache on this page.
No, you can't, but you can see his magnificent sideburns.
You can certainly see the sideburns, yes.
But the 70s.
You're just assuming he's got a moustache.
Well, I know who he is, so...
I mean, it's a good shout. But still, yeah. We cut to the Baxter building. No, we don't. We cut to the New York apartment of Alicia Masters. Sorry, it was the top-down shot made me just go, Baxter building. And Ben's attempting to be all domestic. It's not going very well.
No, I like his jeans, though.
Yeah. I'd kind of like to just see, like, the comedy montage. There's some gently morose music playing, and Ben's, like, trying to do the ironing, bake a cake, knit a scarf. All three become combined into one weird ironed scarf cake. I'd just like to see Ben attempting to amuse himself around the house all day with nothing to do.
Yeah, while Alicia's busy sculpting.
Yeah.
That would be good. I like Alicia's change to her again, because on page 3 it's green, but it changes back to brown for page 6.
Yeah, I'm looking at mine and going, green or blonde? I think it might be blonde, but the inking makes it feel like green. Maybe the ink ran, I don't know. But, oh god, yeah, she is blonde on the next page, so... Trick of the light.
Yeah, obviously. This is the only appearance of the Thing in this particular comic book. And basically it's just there to set up that he's been invited to test a new space shuttle for NASA. And then he gets a present from the Yancey Street gang that ticks. Mm-hmm. My favourite panel of this entire page is the ever-loving blue-eyed Thing sticking his hands down the toilet.
Yes. Only to find that he's destroyed a watch from the Yancey Street gang.
I love his logic there, though. They knew that I'd hear it ticking and think it was a bomb.
Well, he is somewhat predictable.
Yeah, but then he gets all teary-eyed at the idea of never interacting with the Yancey Street gang again.
Mm-hmm.
Aww.
As if the fact the Fantastic Four don't exist means that they won't turn up to try and torture him again.
Yeah.
It was very much a Ben thing, not a Fantastic Four thing.
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's touching in its own way.
We only get a page with Ben here, but we will find out more about what Ben's up to in the Fantastic Four's absence next week. So, whilst I felt shortchanged with this, I didn't once I'd read something else. I'm not going to say what, but it's basically Marvel 2-in-1. Oh, look, I said what it was.
Well, they can get away with Ben not having a big part in the Fantastic Four when the Fantastic Four are split up, because he's got his own comic.
Yes, and it actually makes we'll talk about this more next week with our guest, but it makes the comic a little more relevant than it has been to Fantastic Four continuity. So, yeah. Anyway, back in this town that hasn't been named... that looks really small and sort of, we see the main street, it's almost completely deserted, the buildings are only 3 stories high, but it has an airport.
It has a ramshackle airport. If we go back to page 1, that's not a massive airport.
No, but I've flown into Antwerp Airport, where from the door of the plane to the taxi rank is about 200 yards.
And Liverpool Airport, now John Lennon Airport, that used to be a shed in the middle of nowhere.
It used to be a mobile shed, but then it was put up on bricks.
Oh!
I mean, ironically, it made it better.
Because they can just push it around.
Where's the airport? Where it's been since Barry had them tyres.
I quite like this. I like Wyatt and Johnny just shooting the shit while they get into the hotel. I like the bit about Johnny liking fast cars and classy women, or is that the other way around? I genuinely smiled at that. There is no way on God's green earth that's a Ferrari, despite that's what Johnny calls it later on.
Yes, he's get run over by females in Ferraris. Yeah, that's an American car, isn't it?
Yes, that is not a Ferrari, Mr. Slifer or Mr. Wein. And then we get to the...
Or Mr. Perez, let's face it.
Mr.
He could have drawn one.
He could have drawn a Ferrari, yeah. And then we get the lovely Rebecca Rainbow, who in this issue seems to be being set up to be somewhat of a supporting character.
Yes.
Don't get used to her.
I mean, this isn't her first appearance.
Yeah, but that's a retcon, isn't it?
Somewhere on the line, it's revealed that she was in the Marvel 2-in-1 issue with Wyatt Wingfoot and Ghost Rider. But yeah, I mean, she's given a name here. She's given... What do you call those tassels that she's got all over her top?
She's wearing one of those, 70s, not leather jacket. It's the kind of jacket that Evel Knievel used to wear a lot. So it's got tassels on the sleeves and tassels running across her chest. Peter Parker wore one as well in the early 1970s. So it's that kind of coat with the tassels on. If you were around in the 70s, your mum probably had one.
I wasn't, but I bet she had one. Yeah, so she turns up and she is all attitude and, yeah.
I like her.
She's pushed a bit too much because she is basically the second character in this comic. Not even Wyatt gets the amount of page time as Rebecca. And that might make... I think she was pushed a bit too much in this story, and that's why she never really makes an impact or lasts beyond this issue and the next. Because she has no recorded appearances on Marvel Wikia past Fantastic 493.
No, we never see her again, according to that, which is, I think, had Wein stayed, I think she would have become a love interest for Johnny, because they do set up instantly that she's got a lot in common with him in terms of racing, but at the same time, Johnny's very laid back and a bit of a short fuse, but she seems to be more go-getting. And the introduction that Wyatt gives them both, I really felt like they were setting these two up for something.
Right. But not.
No, it never went anywhere, which is a shame.
I think when you tie someone so specifically to one area of Johnny's life, it's difficult to have a, she's a racing driver, she travels around the country, why would she come to New York just for Johnny? It probably would achieve her character to just have her then, abandon everything that she is to hang around in New York so she can appear in the comic.
Or he goes racing with her, because there's no Fantastic Four at the minute.
Yeah, but let's face it doesn't last.
No, it doesn't, but, as I said, I quite like her. I like that she's up front, and I like that she's Wyatt's friend, possibly from his tribe, I don't know. That's not really spelt out, but I quite liked her. I thought she was fun.
Talking of Southerns with impressive moustaches, the one who owns the hotel...
Thaddeus P. Longhorn, son.
Mayor of this fine city and organiser of Dade County's first drag race. Dade County.
Is that a place? Dade County, yeah, Dade County's a real thing. This guy really is Big and Little Enos Burdett from Smokey and the Bandit.
You just said some words there and I believe they mean something.
If you've seen Smokey and the Bandit, think of Big Enos Burdett, and that's who this guy is. If you haven't seen Smokey and the Bandit, think of Boss Hogg with a big tash.
Yeah, your references aren't helping me out here, but...
he's quite likeable. You can see he's a bit of a shaky mer. He clearly just wants to put his little town on the map in some way, which is probably why he's invited Johnny to this race in the first place. But he doesn't seem like a bad guy per se.
No, he's there's an element of greed and self-promotion about it, but none of it seems actively malicious.
No, he seems quite happy for Johnny to be here, and he's quite happy that this is going to do something for the town, maybe bring some money into it or whatever, and he seems quite open about all that.
I don't think it's working considering how empty Main Street is, so maybe this is all a sort of desperate play. If I keep telling Johnny that everything's fine, maybe it will be. Oh Lord, please help out a poor Thaddeus P. Longhorn.
Oh, what a lovely man.
Oh lordy.
Johnny gets the best room in the hotel.
Indeed. And he gets to look at the pictures of his family. I love Ben's picture there. Dressed in his high-collared jacket, his cravat, sucking on a cigar and winking at the camera.
Oh, you can't but love, the thing in a cravat.
Can you rephrase? You can't but love the thing.
You cannot not love the thing. I mean, you can but love the thing if you want to. I'm not going to judge you.
So Johnny's getting morose, and then Johnny... no, not Johnny. Someone else is lying in bed, smoking a cigar, listening to a little two-way radio, and generally being mysterious.
Shadowy figure.
Who could this shadowy figure be?
Ooh, and why is he here? Who wants him to grab the Human Torch? These are all mysteries that will be sort of solved later down the line.
Ish.
Yeah, kind of.
Back to New York, and Reed and Sue in what I guess is their apartment they've managed to get hold of quite easily.
Yeah, because they all lived in the Baxter building, didn't they?
Yeah. Did Reed have this little pad on the side? Was that his bachelor pad?
Maybe it was Sue's when she left him. Oh no, she was living on the farm with her mates, wasn't she?
She went out into the country.
I remember he just quickly rented an apartment from somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Reed's attempting to find some way of supporting himself. If only he had some kind of talent to create world-changing devices, technology that could change society.
And if only he had a friend who ran a big industrial complex.
Yeah, I mean, are they really friends at this point? I mean, they're on the Illuminati together if you jump ahead 30-odd years in continuity, but I never got the feeling they were that friendly every time they met.
I can't
which
imagine
isn't very
Tony...
often, actually.
No, it's not. They don't meet a lot, but I can't imagine Tony Stark wouldn't employ Reed Richards.
Yes, well, I think the offer would have to come through his bodyguard.
Yes, his bodyguard. Yeah. Arthur Thornhill shows up and tells Reed that we'll pay you 20 grand a week if you come and work for us.
Now, that's a pretty good wage.
For 1977 money, eh?
Let's have a look, because I meant to look this up. Yeah, that's 82 grand a week.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, dollars, but still, that's a lot.
It's still an impressive amount of money.
That's quite a lot of financial power given to this guy who never appears again. He's listed on Marvel Wiki as only appearance. Cynthia & Associates, the company he represents, who presumably will form some kind of plot over the next few issues, they stick around for a little bit, but yeah.
I do get the feeling that the transition of writer meant that a lot of the things that are introduced here just fell away.
Yeah, because we go through a sort of co-writing phase, and then Marv's on board to lead the book into 200. And the first real the idea of a big story climaxing in an anniversary issue comes with 200, because, let's face it, Fantastic Four 100 was not a good story. Spider-Man 100 was all about the multi-armed thing and kicking off a new story, but the idea of climaxing is quite unique at this time. Anyway, on that handshake, was that where you left off?
That's where I left off, yes.
So let's continue shaking hands and take a quick break. Oh, Andy, I need a wee. You have to come with me.
What happened? No, you can sort that on your own.
We're going to keep holding hands.
No.
Hi, I'm John Wilson.
And I'm Michael Kaiser.
And we're the hosts of the podcast Make Ours Marvel. You know, here we are in 2018, 10 years into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, can you believe we live in a world where everyone's old Aunt Petunia knows who Iron Man is?
It's crazy, right?
So, to celebrate, we're on a mission to explore the roots of the Marvel Universe.
You know you've thought about it. Some of you may have even done it, and now we're going to do it too.
We're diving back into the long boxes of Marvel's history and podcasting our way through the whole universe.
All of it. Every superhero issue. And, if I can convince Mike, we'll even do Sergeant Fury.
And it's not going to be one issue per episode. That'd take forever.
It's still going to take forever.
But no, we're going to talk about as many comics as we can in an hour.
Yep, an hour and, maybe a little change. Every week, Marvel Comics. So it'd be super cool if you came along for the ride.
Look for us every Friday at makeoursmarvel.com.
That's makeoursmarvel.com. Or on iTunes and all the other usual podcasty places.
And if you want to read along with us and send us your thoughts, we might even read emails.
So until Avengers Infinity War gets a spin-off Warlock in the Infinity Watch TV show,
Make Ours Marvel.
And we're back.
Tomorrow arrives, and amidst all the race palaver, Rebecca and Johnny wish each other the best. The race begins, and soon it's a two-horse race between Rebecca and Johnny. They are going the distance. They're going for speed. They're alone, all alone in their time of need. They deftly maneuver or muscle for rank, fuel burning fast on an empty tank. Reckless and wild, they pull through the turn. Their prowess is potent and secretly stern. Suddenly, a tornado hits, throwing Rebecca from her car and tearing Johnny's apart. It's time to flame on! The torch saves Rebecca from certain death, only to be confronted by... the Texas Twister? Really? Well, I've been chomping at the bit for the return of the Texas Twister. Still, Tex is actually pretty formidable here, causing problems and headaches for the Torch that he actually has to use his brains to sort out. Tex even manages to get the upper hand for a bit, until Rebecca and Wyatt drive a truck into him. Wyatt even manages to lay Tex out with a solid right hook. This gives Johnny time to recover, and he manages to bring Tex down, although Tex manages to get away from Johnny having used up all his allowance of power for this story. Thaddeus P. Longhorn arrives and commends Johnny on his performance, saying that if they can make this a weekly event, the town will clean up. Rebecca and Wyatt wonder if Johnny can handle the excitement of being a showman. The end.
So, race day. And we have a commentator, Bronco Bob Smith. Now, I've been reading some classic 2000 AD for quite some time actually, but between the Sam Slade Robot World Cup storyline, where there's a whole load of Bryans doing the commentating in a parody of early 80s football commentators, and then the John Byrne drawn Judge Dredd strip, which involves some kind of combination trivia game and mass riot, which has these fantastic commentators. I'm very much in a commentating mood, and you can hear me talk more about that Judge Dredd story, which is drawn by John Byrne, on an upcoming episode of Space Spinner 2000. Goodie, that one. Yes.
Excellent plug. Well done.
There you are, comrade. So yeah, it's a drag race, but there seems to be very little drag about this. And I don't just mean the lack of RuPaul. I mean, a drag race is supposed to be these massive engined cars going as fast as they can in a straight line, not some kind of massive cross-country race where everyone loses sight of them after a few moments and then sits around going, well, that was a bit boring. See him in half an hour.
Yeah, it does seem to be a little confusion over exactly what kind of race it is, doesn't there?
Yeah, just a little.
I do like Johnny's racing suit.
Yes, this is basically a Fantastic Four suit with some extra line work. I mean, has Jim Lee designed this?
I presume it's a regulation suit with fire retardant on it, but that's kind of pointless with it being Johnny Storm.
I was about to say, why?
Maybe health and safety makes him wear it.
For once, they can actually justify saving a few quid on safety measures.
Yeah, maybe the sponsors won't let them. I don't know.
Yeah. Wyatt gets to just loiter in the crowd without saying anything. Poor Wyatt. Just give him a line, please.
Not just yet.
No.
And the race begins.
Johnny gets to slip up. All kidding aside, Becky, I do hope the best person wins. Oh, Johnny, your forced attempts to be woke are pitiful.
Well, at least he's not calling a Pocahontas anymore.
Yes.
The race begins, and very quickly, because there's a limited page count, all the other drivers are left in the dust. Like, within one panel.
Yep. I mean, this is very much the racing movie on the cheap. And all the other cars stalled on the line. No big expensive wide shots for us.
It's just Johnny and Rebecca going nose to nose or bumper to bumper until a tornado shows up. I do love the caption here. It's only by chance that the battering wind that rends tyre from axle from frame, also sends Rebecca sailing free. That was a real stroke alert, wasn't it?
Yes, so she can cry out help. Because the thing about tornadoes, I think they're well known once they've caught things in them for just throwing one very light piece out randomly whilst keeping all the really heavy and lethal stuff contained within it. We get a flame on as Johnny races to save Rebecca.
Yay!
And then at the top of page 17, we get to see as he grabs her, he's deflamed his arms. Which is, it's always nice to see that. Even though the visual always looks slightly weird, it's good to see that he's not just, I grabbed you and, oh God, I burnt through your wrist. Ah!
Sorry, Rebecca.
Oopsie. They can do marvellous things with prosthetics in 40 years' time.
Oh, Reed could probably do it now. And the villain stands revealed. He is the Texas Twister. Last seen in FF 177.
Except not true.
Is that not true?
Last seen in recent issues of Captain America, where he's a member of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a super team that the Falcon's trying to mentor.
Which kind of spoils the reveal as to who wanted Johnny Storm.
It does a bit, and this is where the delays, I mean, who knows just how far ahead they were on this when the delay set in, but if this had turned up when without the fill-ins, without the reprint and without that fill-in issue, if this had turned up 2 months previously, it would have been on the stands at about the same time as the Captain America issue. So, there would have been a little overlap, but it's not like it's 2 months later and it's relatively common knowledge. So, it's spoilt a little bit by this because it all feels a little out of sequence.
Now, I wasn't reading Captain America in concurrent with this. You're reading everything as we go along.
Yeah.
So to find out... Oh, fuck, we'll just spoil it. To find out Texas Twister is working for S.H.I.E.L.D. to recruit Johnny, I don't really see S.H.I.E.L.D. approving of his methods.
No, because he destroys these cars, puts lives in danger, cocks up a race, potentially throws this town into financial ruin.
Yeah, surely Nick Fury's giving him his pink slip at this point.
Yeah, and that's before we even talk about the fact that he stopped on the way out to dye his hair and moustache, which were very clearly grey earlier in the book.
That's what he was doing last night in his hotel room.
That's why he was in shadow all the time. Can't show that.
He's combing through.
Look at page 3. Those sideburns are very clearly grey.
Yep, very clearly, yes. Maybe it was a disguise, I don't know.
Yes, oh God. Anyway, the Texas Twister is back. Now, he was fun in his, 2-page appearance?
Yeah.
Back in FF 177, I think they said it was.
He was auditioning for the Frightful Four, wasn't he?
Yes, and he was a good giggle. Here, that sense of fun appears to be relegated to he's got an accent. See, fun character. Look how he talks different from everyone. And whilst Chris Claremont takes notes and goes, this would work well for a Cajun. No, no, no.
If he's also working for S.H.I.E.L.D., why does he wear a mask?
Well, he wore a mask in his original. Why does Captain America wear a mask?
That's an excellent point.
There we are, then.
I don't think Captain America's on the payroll, is he?
Well, he has been at times.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
Especially in the 60s and early 70s.
Yeah, all right.
So he's having a go at Johnny, and God knows why, because let's face it, Johnny's got more going on than Texas Twister has. Johnny doesn't need to prove anything to S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, when Nick Fury wanted to test some weaponry in downtown New York, he attacked Johnny Storm because that was the best person to deal with it. Also, a really great way of filling up 18 pages of a comic with a reprint. Who signed off on this is what I want to know. I want to see the sequel to this where the Texas Twister gets back home and it's just 18 pages of Nick Fury ripping him a new arsehole.
And the guy who sent him on the mission.
Yeah.
He's now polishing toilets on the helicarrier.
He's polishing the Hulk's toilet. the toilet the Hulk shat that Skrull out in at the end of the Ultimates.
Oh, with a toothbrush.
Anyway, yes.
Anyway, the fight scene that is essentially the last third of the book, it's got some interesting visuals to it, but it wasn't the most interesting part of the issue.
Yeah, the sort of the bit that was most interesting was when there was the Texas Twister throws up a whole load of sand. So Johnny turns the sand to glass, presumably to stop. He says to stop the sand from cutting off the oxygen, but turning it to glass around him seems to also do the same thing. And then it blows it apart.
Go on, it's all right.
No, my conclusion was going, which I did twice already.
I liked Wyatt and Rebecca driving a truck into him.
Yes, that's a bit more fun. That's I can't even think. I had it. I could see it in my mind for a moment, and now I've lost it. But yeah, it's always fun seeing people drive trucks into things. I watched Dalek Invasion of Earth a couple of weeks ago when Barbara drives the truck straight through the Daleks. That's fun.
Yes, yes, it is. Especially seeing as they don't have any powers in this book, so yeah.
Well, neither did Barbara.
Neither did Barbara. No, that's very true. I'm surprised the Daleks didn't just blow her up.
Yeah, and then Wyatt turns up to punch the Texas Twister, but not say anything.
He does mention that he learned to fight with the whatever the name of his tribe was, the Kiwazi.
Okay, he does on the next page, but he just turns up, wallops the Twister, and then stands back. You know, surely wallop him, then wallop him again, and keep walloping him so he stays down.
You'd think so, but, you know. The issue wraps up pretty quickly from there.
Yeah, Twister does another tornado. Johnny tries to counter... Oh, no, he doesn't try to counter do it with his flame. Sorry, I'm thinking of the Flash. He basically, if I put a few loose flame trails around it, I can heat up the tornado. It's like, well, that needs to be a lot more to get the heat to where it needs to be. But that eventually persuades Twister to go, no, I'm done. Bye.
Yeah, he just buggers off, doesn't he?
Yeah. I can see why my employers wanted you, he says, all mystically. It's S.H.I.E.L.D. We've read the comics.
And Johnny can't follow him because he's ran out of flame power.
Indeed. There must have been a small puddle nearby.
Sad trombone.
Yes. But then the sheriff turns back up going, I loved it. Best race I've ever seen. He hasn't seen any of it. He watched them disappear into the distance and then ran to a helicopter.
Didn't he have a couple of helicopters filming it?
Oh, okay. If you're going to be, reading all the bits of the comic...
I'm going to be following the story. Bloody hell.
Yeah.
And we have a nice wah, 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 wah ending.
Yes. I hope he can stand the excitement.
Well, there'll be no trouble at all. And there we go.
Yeah. Oh, go on then. You start with this one.
I really enjoyed this one. I'm sorry, but I did. It did give me Strange Tales vibes when I read it, but not in a negative way. We have said before that one of the things we don't like is when it just goes from one issue to the next issue, to the next issue, to the next issue, big cliffhanger, big story, big cliffhanger, and doesn't have a break. Some of my favourite stories are when they have some downtime. And this was a nice downtime issue. Johnny gets to kick back, relax, do something away from the Fantastic Four. He's hanging around with his mate Wyatt Wingfoot. He meets a new friend who I thought would be more important, but isn't. Yeah, the Texas Twister stuff's a bit silly, especially when we learn out he was trying to recruit him for S.H.I.E.L.D., which makes no goddamn sense whatsoever. But for the most part, I genuinely enjoyed this. I really did. I thought it was a nice, fun, slightly frivolous, but no less entertaining story for all that.
Yeah. I just feel a bit This felt so lightweight. And after the really deep, rich character stuff of the last issue, I was really looking forward to seeing the Fantastic Four off on their own. But Ben, Reed and Sue barely get a look in, although at least we get to spend more time with Ben in 2-in-1. And Johnny starts the issue by going, I don't know, I'm unsure of my place in the world. Is there a place for me outside the Fantastic Four? And we just don't really get a resolution to that. He takes out the Texas Twister eventually, but there's no sense of, you know what, I can stand on my own. I don't need the Fantastic Four around me, and I can do this with the support of my friend Wyatt, who occasionally gets to speak. And I just didn't... It just felt lightweight, and not good lightweight. I wanted more. I also, Perez's artwork, I think, has peaked for the Fantastic Four. This didn't have as much impact and wow as previous issues. Probably because I think of all the characters, Perez draws Johnny. I don't think that I get as much from his depictions of Johnny as I do certainly from Ben, from Reed and from Sue. I think there's just a little less going on in what he's doing.
I wonder if it's storyteller's credit because George's pencils were quite loose and Joe Sinnott's picking up the heavy work.
Yeah, maybe.
But, all right, slight difference of opinion this week from us. I thoroughly enjoyed it. You less so, but never mind.
Yes, it can happen.
Occasionally, yeah.
Right, elsewhere in this issue, Andy, we have house ads for the Spider-Man Web Shaker, which doesn't look like you're just stringing glue around the place. Oh, no, at all. Definitely not. And other assorted Marvel merchandise. Marvel subscriptions, a genuinely terrible advert for Pizzazz. I've looked at this advert over and over and over. I'm trying to work out what these two poorly drawn dancers are doing, because sometimes they appear to be making the letters with their bodies. Other times they're just leaping around like f***ing grinning loons for no reason at all. There's nothing in that would make me want to pick up this magazine at all. It really feels like someone went, we're going to press in a few minutes. Someone got that pizzazz ad, and someone very guilty going, sure, it's right here, as they're frantically scribbling down before they run off to find another job. And there's another instalment of Hostess Masterpiece Theatre.
Yeah, that pizzazz doesn't even seem like an ad for a magazine. Anyway, yes, the Hostess advert.
So, this week it's a Spider-Man one, titled, Stop It. There's nothing funny about this at all.
Yes, there is.
This is called Spider-Man Spoils a Snatch. I like having this red dot on the microphone because I can give it a withering glance in lieu of you.
Spider-Man spoils a snatch.
Indeed. What you need to know about this one is there are hundreds of little bald men in orange jumpsuits.
Oh, dear.
Anyway. The guard yells, "Stop! Thief!" MJ says, "Peter, someone's stolen the Cope Emerald."
Whoops. What's Peter Parker doing here at a time like this? Thinks Peter. Gee, Mary Jane, I just thought of something. And he runs off after all the orange people, and in the next panel he's already Spider-Man, so we presume he took off and got changed. Some smart aleck is projecting hundreds of images. My spider webs can't catch what's not real, but how to tell which is the real villain? Nothing human can resist Hostess, rights reserved, cupcakes. He can't help but show himself.
I believe that's Arthur registered trademark.
That's the one.
Delicious! Absolutely delicious! My images can't enjoy this delicious devil foods cake, this fudgy chocolatey icing, the fresh wholesome taste. I can! Oh, fudge! I didn't get the Cope Emerald, but I did get the rich taste of Hostess cupcakes. The day isn't a total loss. Peter Parker, you missed all the excitement.
I just went out for some Hostess cupcakes. It's excitement enough for me.
You get a big
bite
delight
in every bite
of Hostess cupcakes.
Well, that one wasn't as funny as its title suggested it was going to be.
Snatch spoiled.
Yes.
The Baxter Building Bulletins opens with Robert Salon, who enjoyed Fantastic Four 186, thinks that George Perez is the best artist to draw the FF since Kirby, and loved Salem 7, the best villains Marvel has invented in years.
Really?
John Steinhaus thought Fantastic 486 was one of the best issues in years. Ann Nichols nitpicked Agatha's knowledge of Franklin's powers and praised the return of Sue to the forefront of the team. And finally, Ed Veer took issue with Marvel's promise for Sue to have a larger piece of the pie following the Counter-Earth tale. And he writes, and I'll quote it if I can find it, "This may be a wild notion out of left field, but why don't you just treat her as a member of the team needing no more or less emphasis than her free fellows?" Which is a surprisingly common sense idea. So, yes. We also have a statement of ownership.
Ooh.
In the past 12 months, the average number of copies circulated of each issue was 419,544, with the most recent issue before filing circulating at 399,656. This is a drop of about 50,000 from the previous year, which peaked at 449,455, although the average is only down by about 10,000 issues. And now the Bullpen Bulletins and Stanley's Soapbox, which goes like this.
Many knowledge-hungry readers have asked, what in the name of Irving Forbush do I talk about when I make my monthly pilgrimage to some defenceless college, bringing a modicum of Marvel culture to the madly cheering mammals? Therefore, in my burning desire to answer your every question, and because I can't think of anything else to write right now, you're now about to be favoured with a typical outline of one of Lee's luminous little all-purpose lectures. So let's begin before you get too choked up to read any further. I usually kick off with a brief outline of the history of Mighty Marvel, how and why the whole nutty thing began, and since I've got the world's worst memory, it really comes out the same way twice. Half the campuses in America probably have wildly conflicting histories of the growth of Marvel's greatness, but at least it ends up keeping them on their toes. Then we have some dizzy in-depth discussions of our cuddly costumed cavorters. We probe the psyches and gestalts of Spidey, the Hulk, Doc Doom, Howard the Antatid, in case you meet a guy who speaks only Latin, and as many other of our legendary little lovebugs as time and the audience's stamina will permit. Next, we come to the really heavy stuff, namely the philosophy of comics. We explore what's right with them, and, gulp, what's wrong with them, why Marvel has a Pichelli flavour all of its own, sort of like a ripe scallion, and what lies ahead for Marveldom assembled. That's probably the most momentous subject of all, for as academia knows, as Marvel goes, so goes the nation, the world, the universe maybe. Finally, we segue into the grand finale, the part where the long-suffering audience can get to its well-deserved revenge, the questions and answer period. This is the zingiest part for all concerned, because they can put me on the spot while I get my jollies by trying to worm out of it in my usual sneaky way. And there you have it, next to the secret of the Rosicrucians, probably the most sought-after info since the Silver Surfer divulged the name of his barber. And now till J. Jonah Jameson elopes with Aunt May. Close! Have the merriest of Christmases, be good to each other, and always remember, Red Sonja will love you if you keep thinking Marvel. Excelsior, Stan.
There's a big plug for the next Marvel Comics Super Special featuring Conan the Barbarian, Spider-Woman's getting her own title, Luke Cage is teaming up with Iron Fist, and Marvel Preview is going to feature the UFO Connection. Ed Hannigan is leaving editorial to take over the Defenders, replaced by Jim Salicrup. Ellen Beveridge is leaving the fan department to become a colorist, replaced by Helen Katz, and Roger McKenzie and Keith Pollard have taken over titles recently, including the Fantastic Four.
Ooh.
Black and White Monster magazine feature writer Ron Haydock has sadly passed away, and George Perez and David Kraft are working on a hush-hush new project featuring a certain superheroine. And I couldn't find out any information about this, so it obviously remained hush-hush forever. The closest I could come to was that David Kraft wrote every issue except the first of She-Hulk when it launched.
Possibly.
But that's 2 years away.
Who wrote the Black Widow issues of Marvel Premiere? Marvel Fanfare?
That's George Perez and David Kraft working together, but that's like 1982.
Yes, but Marvel Fanfare was famous for dusting off work that never got finished.
Oh, right.
I'm not saying that is what it is, but I think it's more likely to be that than She-Hulk.
Yes, I think I'd agree with you as well. Apart from anything, Perez wasn't involved with She-Hulk, so... Anyway, if you want to have a read of this issue, depending on if you agree more with me or with Andy, you can find it in the 44 Years of the Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Silver Surfer Complete Collection DVDs. There's Essential Fantastic Four Volume 9. There's Fantastic Four, The Overthrow of Doom, one of the Premier Edition hardcovers that reprinted this era from 192 through to 200. There's Fantastic Four Visionaries George Perez, Volume 2. There's Marvel's Mightiest Heroes, Volume 4. That's the Hachette Partwork, the red version from the UK, which reprinted, basically 192 through to 200 again. So, yeah, that was the cheaper version without the glossier cover available in newsagents. And there's Marvel Masterworks, The Fantastic Four, Volume 18. Anyway, that's our coverage for this issue completed, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we're back, we have a very special email, as well as looking ahead to what we're doing next week on the show, who we're doing it with, Patreon supporters you already know, and our number one for the week of release.
Kalabak, Tassad, it is I, Darkseid. I command you to listen to the Who's Who podcast. Uncover the powers and weaknesses of the Super Friends, so that I may destroy them.
Aquaman and Superman, Animal Man and Plastic Man, Firestorm and Nuclear Man, Batman and Hawkman, 2D Man and Hour Man.
Who are all these people, man?
They're all part of the DC Who's Who. Ultra Boy and Booster Gold, Lightning Lass and Hippolyta, Phantom Stranger, Etrick and Arizia and Woody Winks.
Hey.
What?
What about that one guy?
What guy?
Mr. Pretzel, Mr. Lipstick, Mr. Mitzelfuzzle?
Mr. Mitzi's Pitlick?
Yeah, him.
He's also part of the DC Who's Who.
Who's Who, the definitive podcast of the DC Universe.
Available monthly at Aquaman Shrine, Firestorm Fan, and on iTunes and Stitcher as part of the Fire and Water podcast.
And we're back, and it's a very special...
It's email reading time.
Because this is something we begged for, and it's a letter from one of our listeners who is detailing quite a unique encounter. That's all I'm going to say. Andy.
It's from Eric Clements, episode 271, and meeting Jack Kirby. Hello, Steve and Andy. Fantastic Four issue 190 was just as I remembered it when I bought it. A big steaming pile. This was 2 months in a row that I bought a Fantastic Four comic, only to have it turn out to be some reprint or a hastily slapped together flashback clip show, and I remember feeling pretty cheated out of a good comic book. Good thing the next issue, 191, was, and still is, one of my favourite FF comics ever. I guess the only redeeming quality issue 190 had to offer was the Jack Kirby cover, yet even that looked a little bit rushed. As I may have hinted at in an earlier letter, I was fortunate enough to meet Jack Kirby once. I've always been a huge fan of Jack's artwork. In fact, one of the very first comics I ever purchased was Commandy issue 23, along with a couple of forgettable Charlton and Gold Key comics. Right from the start, I knew his dramatic, larger-than-life style was so much better than the bland, uninspired artwork offered in those other comics. I was 9 years old, and all I wanted to do was draw like him. Skip ahead 8 years to 1983. I was in high school with dreams of one day becoming a comic book artist. I often studied the illustrations of my favourite artists, such as John Romita, George Perez, and Paul Gulacy, to name a few, but it was Jack Kirby's dynamic way of drawing that drew me to him the most. I grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, a small town an hour's drive north of Los Angeles. Jack was working on his Captain Victory strip for Pacific Comics at the time. It was one of those issues, I believe, where I discovered in a letters column that he lived in the very same town I did. I was a bit surprised, seeing as I thought you had to live in New York to work in comics. I was curious to discover just where he lived. So, since the internet was not going to be available for another decade, I was forced to use the next best thing, the phone book. I found only one J. Kirby inside, but no address, just a phone number. For days I toiled over whether or not to call him. I was a huge fan, but I didn't want to be the only purpose for my call. I wanted advice on my artwork, and I had the king of comics in my backyard. How could I not call him? And so, with my hands shaking and my heart pounding so hard it felt like the very cosmic rays were punching through me, I called him up. He answered the phone. I'm sure I must have stammered as I squeaked out my appeal. I told him I was a huge fan and that his artwork had had a tremendous influence on me, and that I hoped one day I too could draw comic books. I didn't know what to expect, really. I hadn't thought it all the way out. Perhaps I thought he might give me some advice over the phone. I was hardly prepared when he casually suggested that I come over to his house that weekend and show him my portfolio. Unable to believe my incredible good fortune, I accepted, and just like that, I was going to visit the King of Comics. With my portfolio in hand, I drove to his home, high in the hills overlooking the Cuneo Valley, filled with equal parts of anxiety and giddiness. I was warmly greeted by Jack himself, and he introduced me to his wonderful wife, Roz. I believe she offered me something to drink, perhaps lemonade or iced tea. My head was spinning so hard it could have been fermented yak milk for all I remember. After a few minutes of light conversation, which consisted of him asking me what school I was attending and myself commenting on how nice his home was, we left the kitchen and walked half a dozen steps into his sanctum sanctorum, his workroom.
The room was large and long and seemed to span the entire length of the back of the house. 3 of the walls were packed with bookshelves and artwork, while the 4th wall was nearly all windows, showing a spectacular view of the valley. Everywhere I looked, there were sketches and bits of finished artwork depicting the myriad of characters drawn by Jack through the years, from a thing here to a commandy there, as well as a whole slew of recent Captain Victory pages. This was where the magic happens. We talked about drawing in general for a little bit. I asked him how he was able to draw such crowded scenes without looking like a jumbled mess. His response was that a good inker helps a lot, and that he was fortunate to have worked with a handful of amazing issues. I also asked how he came up with all those fantastically complex made-up bits of machinery. He told me that he just looks at everyday objects like a blender or a radio and uses them as a base to design his space-age computers or flying vehicles. I then showed him my rather pathetic portfolio, to which he graciously went through each page, pointing out a nugget of something good I did here, a helpful critique there, and in the end telling me that if you want to become a good artist you need to draw from the real world before you jump into the fantasy illustrations of your mind, and that you must draw every day. He also suggested, looking at my rather crude homemade comics that I did at the time, that I may want to concentrate on the writing aspect of the comics, since it appeared I had a strong pull towards it, which may or may not have been his gentle way of saying my artwork wasn't quite up to snuff. We also talked a little about working in comics in general with such classic Kirby advice, like never give them your original characters or ideas. He even made a point in not wanting to see a couple of my original superhero drawings, just in case he might inadvertently use some of their design elements. He was also pretty down on Marvel by this time and disillusioned over comics in general, often telling me that it was he who created almost all of the Marvel characters, including, he insisted, Spider-Man, and that he had little to show for it. For a moment I could see he was bitter and tired over the whole experience. But then it passed and he was back at the famous drawing board sketching a picture of a horse and showing me how different the muscle structure was from a human. Overall it couldn't have lasted longer than half an hour, but for me time both stood still and vanished in a blur. When it was time for him to return to his work, he walked me out and wished me good luck on my artistic endeavours. I thanked him profusely and told him how honoured I was that he invited me over. I said my goodbyes and just like that, it was over. I didn't want to come off as just some fanboy. I never brought a camera with me to get a photograph of the two of us, although now, many years later, I wish I had, if only to remind myself that it did in fact happen. But until the day I die, I don't think I will ever meet someone in the field as kind-hearted and generous as that man was to me. To take time away from his busy schedule to invite a fan and potential artist to his home, to take the time to look over my artwork and give his advice, to make me feel welcome and not some burdensome geeky kid from the moment I called up is rare indeed. Very few of us get to meet our idols. I was fortunate enough to meet mine before he passed away. He will always be my inspiration and my king. As it turned out, it would be many years later before I actually followed my dreams of drawing. The constraints of life, making a living and raising a family drove off those youthful thoughts. It wasn't until recently, as I fast approached my 50th birthday, that I realised that life is too short not to do what you love, and that it was never too late to start. After all, Jack was 44 when he created the Fantastic Four, and I was only a few years older than that. I'll always remember that day I met Jack and how close I came to just not making that cool. If there's one thing that encounter instilled in me, it's this. Be bold. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Take chances. You never know what gold you might discover out there or in yourself. Eric Clements.
That was an awesome email.
That really was. I'd become a little afraid we weren't going to get it, and then a couple of weeks ago I was driving home from one of the worst days of work I've had in many a year, just completely and utterly drained mentally and physically, and I was waiting at lights because the lights in Belgium take ages to cycle through, so I just quickly refreshed my email and saw this. And I couldn't have got home quickly enough, and I was reading it as I was walking round to the front door of my building. And I forwarded it to you, Andy. I was just like, I felt like just from reading this email and reading about this astonishing encounter, I just felt like so much weight had been lifted because it was such an amazing account of an amazing experience. And Eric, thank you so much for sharing that with us and our listeners. You had such an astonishingly unique experience, and I'm very, very, very pleased and just a little jealous of you.
It was really impressive. That it's nice when Jack was so kind and considerate to people. By all accounts, Steve Ditko is as well, but Ditko's not as interested in revisiting his old stuff.
No. Yeah, just thank you so much. If you have ever met Jack Kirby, please write to us. But most of you won't have done. I mean, Jack was gone for many years before I even knew who he was.
You don't have to have met Jack Kirby to email it.
But we very much love and appreciate your emails, so please do send them to fantastic4podcast@gmail.com. That's fantastic4podcast@gmail.com. Andy, what have we got next week for the show or podcast? I should probably say one or other of those words, not both together.
Next time on an all-new episode of the Fantasticast, Christina Hannefelk is coming back to discuss another Marvel 2-in-1 with us. And because it's Christine, you can probably guess who the guest star is. Yes, it's Matt Murdock, attorney at law. Marvel 2-in-1 issue 37 is The Thing and Matt Murdock.
Yes, with Matt Murdock credited as himself and not Daredevil. It was too good an opportunity not to reach out to our wonderful friend Christine and ask her to come back to the show for a record-setting, I think this will be the 6th episode we've done with her.
Cool.
It's the 5th or 6th, but she holds the record for most appearances on the Fantasticast. And very much looking forward to speaking to her pretty much this time next week, recording time as well. So, yes, can't wait for that. And now our number one for the week of release, Andrew.
Yay!
Indeed. Do you like bagpipes?
Well, I like Scotty playing them when Spock dies.
Okay. Do you like songs written about bits of Scotland that you happen to own?
If Paul McCartney's singing it, possibly.
I think you know what's coming.
Mull of Kintyre, lab labby doo breathe, the song I desire.
Yes.
Something else. Mull of Kintyre, that one.
Yes, it's Wings. Not that you'd know it by actually looking at the people who played on the track, with Mull of Kintyre / Girls' School. We'll probably only stick one of those in. But yes, we will leave you with that, and we'll be back in 7 days' time with Christine for Game Point. Thank you very much for listening, everyone, and goodbye.
Ta-da! You have been listening to the Fantasticast.
The show can be found at thefantasticast.com, where you can comment on each episode and read our blog.
The Fantasticast is part of the FlickeringMyth.com podcast network. Find us and other great shows at FlickeringMyth.com.
The Fantasticast is Patreon supported. We'd like to thank all of our Patreon supporters, in particular Lisa Slack and Mike Brown. For detail on how you can support us and what you'll get in return, please visit patreon.com/Fantasticast.
The Fantasticast artwork is produced by Michael Georgiou, and individual episode designs are by Sam Savage.
You can find The Fantasticast on Twitter and on Facebook. Simply search for The Fantasticast.
The Fantastic Four and all associated elements are copyright Marvel Comics, and we mean no infringement on these rights.
This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Are you not entertained?
teens.
Ogre Eva.
Ogres. They're all ogres. That's what kids are like. And his class of ogre... Fuck's sake.
Great stuff, guys. This has been a Flickering Myth Podcast Network production. For more information, head over to flickeringmyth.com for more shows like it. Find this show in iTunes by searching for the podcast name, and head over to youtube.com/flickeringmyth to subscribe to the Flickering Myth movie show. We'll see you on the next podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.
Enough said.